Thanksgiving was supposed to feel warm. That's what people say. Warm food, warm laughter, warm family. But in our house, warmth was performative. Smiles were worn like coats, only for guests, only for tradition. I arrived early that year, holding a homemade pumpkin pie, my fingers aching from the cold, and from something heavier I couldn't name yet. My mother stood at the head of the dining table, perfectly composed, her hair neat, her voice sweet in the way that always warned me to stay quiet. Around her sat my siblings, confident, polished, already comfortable in a place I had never truly belonged. I took my usual seat near the corner, close enough to be present, far enough to be ignored. Dinner began like it always did. Forced laughter, safe topics, memories edited to remove discomfort. I listened more than I spoke, I always had. My father used to say listening was my strength. My mother called it weakness. Halfway through the meal, after the plates were full and no one could easily leave, my mother gently placed her fork down. The room followed her movement instinctively. When she cleared her throat, my stomach tightened. "I think honesty is important," she said, smiling politely. Then she looked directly at me, not with warmth, with precision. "You should know now rather than later. You'll inherit nothing." The words hit the table harder than any slammed fist. For a moment, I didn't understand them. My brain rejected the sentence, replaying it slowly, hoping it would change. It didn't. Around me, forks froze midair. Someone shifted uncomfortably. My siblings avoided my eyes, their silence louder than agreement. "I've already made arrangements." My mother continued calmly. "Some children invest in family. Others only benefit from it." My hands trembled beneath the table. I wanted to speak, to remind her of the nights I stayed up caring for my father, the bills I paid quietly, the chances I gave up, but my throat locked. Betrayal doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it comes with a smile and perfect timing. She lifted her glass. "Clarity is kindness." Everyone drank. I didn't. Later that night, I sat alone in my car, parked 2 streets away so no one would see me break. Tears came without sound. I wasn't angry yet. Anger requires certainty. What I felt instead was grief. Not for money, not for property, but for the realization that my own mother had already decided my worth, and pronounced it publicly, over turkey and tradition, as if it were nothing more than another dish passed around the table. And in that moment, something inside me quietly stopped asking if there are truths you don't share, because they sound like excuses when spoken aloud. Mine lived quietly inside me, layered under responsibility, grief, and the kind of loyalty that never asks to be noticed. Before my father died, I became his shadow, not because anyone asked me to, but because someone had to. My siblings visited when it was convenient. My mother delegated care like a task. I stayed. I learned the schedule of his medications, the sound of his breathing when pain woke him at night, the way his hands shook when he tried to hide fear behind jokes. He trusted me with the small things first, then the important ones. Some nights, when the house was finally quiet, he would talk. Not about money or property, but about disappointment. How people reveal themselves when comfort turns into inconvenience. I never spoke badly about anyone. I just listened. That was enough for him. One evening, a few months before he passed, he asked me to bring a folder from his study. My mother had already stopped going in there. The room smelled like old books and aftershave, like a life slowly closing. Inside the folder were documents I didn't recognize, deeds, statements, handwritten notes in my father's careful script. At the bottom was a sealed envelope with my name written across it. "This doesn't come to you directly," he said, watching my face carefully. "It goes through the lawyer." I tried to push the folder back toward him. "I don't want to know," I said. He smiled softly. "That's exactly why I trust you. After he died, grief swallowed everything. My mother took control immediately. Locks were changed, papers were moved. His office became a room no one spoke about. I didn't fight. I didn't ask questions. Some people mistake silence for weakness. I let them. I moved out quietly, paid what I could. Built a life that didn't depend on anyone's approval. Years passed, and the memory of that envelope faded into something I told myself I'd imagined. Then came Thanksgiving, the words "you'll inherit nothing" replayed in my mind for days afterward, echoing louder each time. I tried to convince myself it didn't matter, that I had already lost what mattered most. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. A law firm, my name typed clean and official. I stared at it for a long time before opening it, my heart racing not with hope, but with dread. Because some truths don't bring comfort, they bring reckoning. The lawyer's office was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in feeling, clean lines, polished wood, and the kind of silence that doesn't forgive mistakes. My family arrived together, filling the room with confidence and whispered assumptions. I came alone. My mother didn't look at me when she sat down. She folded her hands neatly on the table, already prepared to receive what she believed was rightfully hers. My siblings leaned back in their chairs, relaxed, as if this were a formality, not a reckoning. The lawyer began with procedure. Names, dates, formal language that made my chest feel tight. Assets were listed one by one: accounts, properties, investments. My siblings nodded along, exchanging small glances of satisfaction. I kept my eyes on the table, steadying my breath. Then the lawyer paused. It wasn't dramatic, just a small, deliberate silence, but the room shifted. "There is an addendum to the will," he said calmly, "executed 6 months prior to your father's passing." My mother's posture stiffened. "I was never informed of that," she said sharply. The lawyer nodded once. That was intentional. He slid a document forward, its edges crisp, untouched by doubt. "This addendum supersedes all prior allocations." I felt my pulse in my ears, in it. The lawyer continued, "Your father placed the primary residence, long-term investments, and controlling interest of the family trust into a single entity." My brother frowned. My sister sat up straighter. The lawyer turned his chair slightly toward me. "The sole beneficiary and trustee of that entity," he said, "is you." Silence crashed into the room. My mother laughed short and disbelieving. "That's impossible." The lawyer met her gaze without blinking. "It's documented, notarized, and legally binding." She stood abruptly, anger rising to the surface. He would have told me. The lawyer opened another file. He asked me to explain why he didn't. The next 90 seconds felt endless. The lawyer read my father's words aloud. About trust built through presence, about loyalty shown without demand, about the child who stayed when no one else did. Every sentence landed quietly, but with precision. No one interrupted. When it ended, my mother sat back down, pale and trembling. My siblings avoided my eyes now. I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I simply sat there, absorbing the weight of something I had never asked for. Justice doesn't always feel victorious. Sometimes it feels like finally being seen too late to change the past, but just in time to change everything else. Winning didn't feel the way people imagine it does. There was no rush, no urge to celebrate. What I felt instead was a strange calm, like a storm finally passing after years of learning how to stand in the rain. I didn't take everything. That decision confused them more than the will itself. I kept the house, but I didn't sell it. I kept the accounts, but I didn't drain them. Power, I learned, doesn't need to prove itself by destruction. It proves itself through choice. My mother stayed in the home she once told me I'd never have. At first, she avoided me, moving through the halls carefully, as if the walls themselves had shifted loyalty. Months passed before she finally spoke to me without sharpness in her voice. "I didn't think you were strong," she said one afternoon, standing in the kitchen where she once ruled without question. I looked at her, not with anger, not with triumph, but with honesty. I wasn't loud. I replied, "That's not the same thing." She cried then. Not the dramatic tears she used for control, but quiet ones that surprised us both. In that moment, I realized something painful and freeing. Her judgment had never been about me. It had been about her fear of losing control. I honored my father the way he would have wanted. I created scholarships in his name. I paid debts my siblings pretended didn't exist. I offered help without announcement. Some accepted it. Some didn't. I didn't need gratitude. The real revenge wasn't taking what they expected to own. It was becoming someone they couldn't dismiss anymore. On the next Thanksgiving, I was invited again. This time, my seat was waiting at the center of the table. My mother asked for my opinion. My siblings listened when I spoke, but I understood something they didn't. Validation that arrives late is no longer necessary. As dessert was served, my mother raised her glass. Her voice trembled. I was wrong. She said quietly, "About you." I nodded, accepting the words without chasing them. That night, as I left the house, I felt lighter, not because I had gained something, but because I had finally stopped carrying what never belonged to me. Love earned in silence, justice delivered without cruelty, that was my true inheritance, and no one could ever take it away.